Hi, I'm Kurt. I'm introducing the second episode of the Zombie Apocalypse broadcast, and I'm going to take a moment and let the other participants introduce their channels so that you know who they are. Let's just go clockwise. Jeff, would you like to start?
Oh, all right. My channel is Decentralizing Mind Control.
On
Hey
what
everyone,
platform? Is that on YouTube or where is it?
Yeah, it's just on YouTube right now.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Jerry.
Hey everyone, I am Jerry from godislovetruthlife.com. I'll pass it to Darren.
My name's Darren. My YouTube channel is called Dunning Team Kruger Force because you always know what you don't know on YouTube.
Wonderful, thanks, guys. So we covered last week that the name was partially chosen because the mind-controlled masses represent the zombies, and the real meaning of the word apocalypse is the lifting of a veil. And in this case, the veil is the ignorance of people. This was meant to educate the population. And the number one thing we were supposed to be trying to teach was objective morality, right?
Yeah.
So everyone always jumps on when you bring that up because moral relativism is the law of the land out here. The moment you bring it up, morality isn't objective. We just keep making it up, which, I mean, what we call morality most of the time in the modern day is, but that's not what objective morality is referring to. Objective morality is almost like a Newtonian action consequence mechanism. Just this week, I came across a post where someone was asking, with an image of a Japanese food stall by a farm where they just had organic food out in a collection bin, and it was unmanned. You just walk up, take your produce, leave your money. And someone was asking why they didn't have things like that in the US. And the next person below them immediately sent back a photo of an absolutely trashed food stall where apparently people from the nearby city had heard about it, gone out to the farm, stolen everything, trashed it, and made like TikToks of themselves making fun of the guy for being such an idiot. But that's the thing is, people expect it to be like an immediate personal reaction. Like if you kick someone's dog and walk out the front door, you get struck by lightning for it. And that's not what happens. What happens is that the way you behave and interact with people get turned off by sort of spiritual terms like saying it puts out energy. But you don't have to think about it as spiritual energy. In very like physical caloric terms, you took energy from your life and caused something negative. If that leads someone to being more stressed when they get home and they lash out at their spouse or are unpleasant around their children, all of these reciprocating things have feedbacks in the community. Even like the murderer shoots a man, well, his kid grows up without a father, and 80% of inmates in prisons come from fatherless homes. Like, every time you're doing these things, you're putting consequences into action that are so far removed from you, you're not necessarily seeing it. But at the end of the day, the amount of freedom and prosperity a population will experience is directly proportional to their ability to understand and follow objective morality. When you're doing things that violate other people's rights, the lack of trust you create forces other people to behave in ways that are, again, more negative, more confrontational, and it becomes a downward spiral. You all hold each other down.
Yeah.
Anyone want to add anything to that?
I would just add, yeah, like basically, human right is not doing wrong, and wrongs include any harm to a sentient being, the seven transgressions. Yeah.
That's actually really important because so many people, they think rights are things, and that includes like the right to food, the right to water, the right to shelter. You don't have the right to any of those things. You only have the right. You have the right to provide them for yourself, but you don't have the right to them. I don't have the right to clean drinking water. I do, having been born on this land, have the right to go to the river or the lake, collect water, filter it, boil it, and then use it for whatever I want. And at any point in that, when I'm walking home with the jug on my shoulder, or when I'm, running it through the filter, if anyone came up and took it from me, well, no, now they're taking something that I labored to produce. So now they're violating my rights because they've taken something I did. They took my energy from me in the process. They took what I had produced. But you don't have the right to the thing. You have the right to attempt to provide yourself with the thing.
You don't have the right to get someone else to provide you with the thing. Rights are actually things, though. They're nouns. They're not people. They're not places. In speech, they're used as nouns, and when they're used as nouns, it's shortened for right actions or actions which are right. So an action is a thing. It's not a tangible thing, but it's an intangible thing. It's a hypothetical thing that can be done. It's a type of action, and actions by conscious beings are divided into two different categories to classify them as right actions and wrong actions. It's wrong if it does harm, and like who's to say what's harm? The owner of the property, like because actions they all take place in the physical world. They rearrange like matter and energy in the physical world. And this and it's irrelevant what you do unless it's a conscious matter or the property of conscious matter. I don't want to go off on a tangent too much, but yeah. Sorry, someone else go ahead. I'm talking probably over talking.
Well, yeah, a right is anything that is not wrong. Like any action or lack of action that's not doing harm to any sentient being, like, the right to clean water. Like, I don't know what that is. I mean, if clean water exists, you have the right to acquire it, as in nobody can say, I purchased the land, so now I'm building a dam, and that's going to cut off a river that's been here since the Ice Age, and now all of your crops get to die because I purchased a land, so now I control the water or I control the wind. You don't have control over a natural resource like that. Or, with the Great Lakes off the coast of Ontario, they have a nuclear waste dump. And I think if you are found to be dumping nuclear or chemical waste, historically, if you're caught poisoning the well, you get killed, and you get killed in a ghastly, torturous way.
That's wrong because it does harm.
Poisoning the well, the river, I mean, that could harm everybody in the entire area, right? So I'm thinking, like, so the place in Ontario, like, nobody has the right to put nuclear waste near the Great Lakes, because that threatens, like, what if there's an earthquake? It doesn't matter if it's likely or not. What if there's a geological issue and that stuff goes into the Great Lakes? You have a freshwater ocean, the largest freshwater reservoir in the hemisphere, if not the world, is contaminated. I mean, somebody should be killed for even writing that fucking shit down on a blueprint. Like, are you fucking out of your mind? Shove it up your ass. Leave it where it is. It doesn't have to go in the Great Lakes. They got all these fisheries and these bottling plants fucking with the Michigan water sources. Yet Flint, Michigan, they can bottle water and sell it around the country and around the world, but people that live here can't access it. So yes, the contamination and the violence and the harm done as a result of people, that's violating people's rights. So yeah, nobody has a right to prevent us from acquiring these things, and anything that doesn't do harm is a right.
Yeah,
Right.
we have a right to get them for ourselves. Like the misunderstanding that's in favor of government and communism to have us misunderstand is, since we do have a right to go get water, we have a right to acquire water if we do it without hurting anybody or stealing it from anybody. They want us to misunderstand and think that means we have a right to be provided with it. And to be provided with it, that means like someone needs to provide it to you. And the government gets credibility by saying like, we'll be providing all of these things to you that you have a right to have. But they want us to miss the point that if you have the right to have it provided to you by somebody, that means you have the right to force someone else to do your work for you, force someone else to give you something or get something for you. They don't have a responsibility to do something for you. And that's a misunderstanding of right. You have a right to acquire it without violating someone else's free will, but you are violating someone else's free will if you tell them you have to pay taxes to pay someone to do the thing for you, or someone has to do the thing for you. That's the misunderstanding. But if you clearly understand the meaning of rights, when you're saying you have a right to do something, that means that's a potential action you could take, and taking this action is not wrong because it does no harm. It violates no one else's free will. So like when you're saying, oh, dumping nuclear stuff in an area that's going to affect people, you don't have a right to do it. You don't have a right to do it because if you did that, it would do harm. It would take away people's access to something fresh by spoiling it for them. It would it would poison several people. It would literally poison people, and that is doing harm. So it is not a potential action you could take that is right.
It's not even just the nuclear waste. The train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, about a year ago, where like 40 train cars of toxic waste burned. That was just south of Lake Erie as well. So, like, I've been going there some mornings to fish this year, but I haven't eaten anything that I've pulled out of that lake. If you get my meaning, I just throw them back because I don't really trust that water right now.
Does anyone else have anything to add on defining objective morality or? And I would add, as a vegan, just being mindful of like harm to sentient beings. Cool. So we talked about in our brief conversation about why the fuck there aren't more women in our community. What are everyone's thoughts on that topic?
Oh yeah, can you explain that, Kurt? Like why would you do sport fishing if you're not going to eat the fish? Like, you poke a hole in its mouth with a hook, potentially like injure it, like just for fun. Like, I do things that are immoral too. Once I realize that, I try to quit doing it. But like, what would you think about like do you think it's right to do like just to catch and release fishing? Or if it's not right, do you think it's something you might consider quitting? Or I used to fish for food, and I quit doing that too.
For me, it's mostly practice in case I have to do it for food. It's more like trying to build a practical skill than just doing it for enjoyment. That's not.
I understand. You're not doing it for no reason.
Joy in poking a hole in it. Yeah, but anyway, we were on the topic.
Oh yeah, well, there's not more women in this movement. Yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of issues with that. I think going into the messaging that's pushed on kids is a good way to start. The Disney programming is a perfect example of this. Basically, every single female character in Disney is a princess, specifically a princess. And in every story, she ends up being provided for with incredible wealth and comfort for the rest of her life, right? And this is what's being shown to kids as young as 2 years old. So, right through the most important years of them forming their perspectives, what they're seeing is the sort of female ideal being having someone else provide all of your needs and comforts for you. And with that, if you've gotten into that mindset that that's what's supposed to happen, you're not going to be willing to do anything that's going to put your own comfort and safety at risk. So you're naturally going to be incredibly more risk averse. And to that end, there's a lot of censorship when you start speaking things that are true but unliked. People get debanked, people lose their jobs, people lose their homes. You start trying to say things that are true and unwelcome, you put yourself at a lot of risk.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I mean, like, I definitely am saddened that so many, that the neo-feminist agenda has been so successful. I am very thankful in my own journey for plant medicine, in waking myself out of that programming, as a woman. But yeah, it just sucks that there aren't, more women in our community. And it's not just women, right? Like, people in general live in fear. And like you were saying, I think there's just this like desire for this false sense of security. And it's like, there is no such thing. And once you realize
I
that,
think
is
happened to me
actually
too.
liberating. Go ahead. Sorry, Jeff.
Oh, maybe it was just my screen. Like, see, I see 4 squares on my screen, and your square like paused, and it was silent. And right when I started pointing that out, it happened to me too. Maybe it was only from my perspective. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, it's okay. It might be your internet connection. Okay. Yeah. Darren, what are your thoughts?
Well, in our society, since we live in a society that's dominated by consumerism and materialism and moral relativism, what is deemed right is actually what's deemed as socially acceptable. So we have this. So moral relativity is essentially consensus. And science, such as the science of morality or any true science or philosophical truth discovery method, is not consensus based. What's right is right, even if nobody's doing it. And
Right.
what's wrong is wrong, even if everybody does it. So is it possible that one person can be right and a million people arguing to the contrary can be wrong? Absolutely. Because
that's the case.
Is
Not only is it possible, it's the case.
Yeah, it is the case, exactly. And like never in any kind of serious, academic discipline is the correct answer based on what people think it is. I mean, in mathematics, that's why the globalists are trying to say that. Well, they're trying to obfuscate, as they always do, but they want to say things like STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields are racist because they favor certain demographics and also men. So, and instead of, so essentially, people have seriously proposed getting rid of the LSAT or the what's the one for medical school, the MCAT. So people literally want to abolish objective means of testing knowledge by saying like certain people don't score well on tests. And so just like what happened with the Navy SEALs in America's military, they didn't just allow women to join the Navy SEALs. They objectively lowered the standards so that women could join. In fact, if a woman was able to meet those standards before, she would have been in. It's just that they were, I mean, you're talking about physical training that applies to the top 1,000th% of human beings. All right. And that's
hypothetically, it's
in
possible
total.
for a woman to achieve those standards,
Correct.
but we're biologically different, so it's
It would
very
be
unlikely.
it would
and
be
it's
one in
not happening.
a billion. It would be 1 in a billion. What, you know what I mean? Like one in a million, 1 in a billion. And
Like that,
Can I
like that 1 in a
mention
billion.
something
Like
else?
if you're not like if you're just treating everyone equally, saying like your gender is irrelevant, then a woman
Right.
should be allowed to join without changing the standards at all. It should just be very unlikely for it
So
to happen.
what's socially acceptable, these progressive reforms are starting to even attack the idea that objective truth is even knowable. That's what's happening. So they're saying,
Well,
oh, your ancestors weren't allowed to read books. But you know what? You don't want to read books anyway because white people read books. So therefore, just don't worry about it. And 35 to 50% of Baltimore high school graduates are illiterate or read at the elementary school level. Come on, you don't tell me that's designed. That's creating an underclass of people who will never know what a right is.
Absolutely. I did want to point out on the comment about it being like 1 in a billion for the Navy SEALs. Even on much lower level military training than the SEALs go through. So in Canada, everyone does the same basic training. And then from there, you all go off to your own trade specific courses and do your own thing, right? And so I did my basic training with a platoon full of people who were going off to be medics, clerks, storehouse operators, mechanics, just all kinds of different trades that all scattered. And that also meant we had about a dozen women on our platoon. Now, even just basic things like there's a week you spend out in the woods in the training area during it, and during that there's a really simple test where you have to walk, I think it's like 13 and a half kilometers in under a certain amount of time with your rifle, your flak vest and helmet, and a minimum of I think 45 pounds in your backpack, which really isn't that much. Like typically my ruck when it was actually loaded up with ammo and food and water and everything was closer to 70. Or sometimes even more. So 45 is nothing. And over half of the women on our course collapsed and fell out of that.
Yeah.
And with that, like even when we just started admitting women into the Canadian military, the training injuries shot up significantly. And a lot of that involves like the rifle isn't any lighter just because you're smaller. The flak vest really isn't. The plate's the same size either way. All the equipment's just as heavy, and you've got someone who's shorter, has lower bone density, thinner joints, and being shorter and generally with wider hips, the legs are on more of an angle. So instead of having the weight distributed straight down on your knees, it's coming in on a sideways angle, right?
Right.
Like, in a lot of ways, women are not physically built for that job, but
Sure.
so like the actual unlikelihood of a woman getting through the SEALs is
Really low.
as he was saying, astronomical. That's
Yeah.
you're looking at a woman who's at like Olympic performance level if she's doing that. I mean, at that point, there's cooler things you could be doing, but. But regarding like this community, I do think it has a lot more to do with the risk aversion side of it. Because even like there's lots of men who don't want to talk about any of this because they don't. I don't want to know, man. So the idea that there's people or there's women that are the same way isn't even hard, right?
Right. Yeah. Also, like, I think societally, as a mom, like, I think there's just so much like social expectation. Like, once you have kids, that's going to be your focus as a parent, and like, I've just decided to make this my job, you know, mentally, and so I make time for my job and I make time for my kids, and I don't define myself in either role. Um,
Well,
but like a
on
lot of
that,
people aren't willing to do that.
there are on that topic, there are a lot of single women with kids out there now who are either completely dependent on the state because they don't have employment that can fully support themselves,
Right.
or they're dependent on child support payments that are being forced out of their husband. But in either case, someone in the same way, there's that old quote, it's hard to get a man to understand something his salary depends on him not understanding. You're not going to convince a woman who's depending on the state to get a check every month to speak out against the government. It's just not going to
Right.
happen. That's
Totally.
running
Yeah,
directly against that woman's personal interest, right?
that makes sense. Yeah.
What about retired people on Social Security?
Oh yeah,
You know, other government assistance, that too. You know, I've had people tell me that they really don't like Joe Biden, but they don't want their Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security to get cut off, so they're going to vote for him. I mean, whereas, look, I was on Social Security myself for like 8 years. And I told them, I think it was a little bit after Donald Trump won the election. You know, it was December. And they were already they're always talking about Social Security, but no, when I had a review come up, I said I don't want it. And they're like, well, how are you going to provide for yourself? And I was like, you know what? If I'm not disabled, I'll figure it out, right?
Yeah.
You know
And
what?
that
Like,
was it.
if the government was paying me Social Security, I would like let them keep on giving it to me. I don't think it's right for them to rob other people so that they could give it to me. But like everything they have is stolen anyway. They don't have the right to have it. If anyone in the world could
Right.
take it away from the government back to the public, I think more power to you. You're stealing back stolen stuff from the thieves.
I don't really want to participate in any transaction with government at all. So
I was just saying that's the reason why that could have been a reason why I stayed quiet, and you know, it just didn't. It wasn't something that, you know, I didn't feel like I was doing something against my self-interest. But I know a lot of people on government assistance believe their survival and the government's survival are inextricably linked.
Yeah, if I could make government give away everything they have until they have nothing left, I would be for them doing that.
Yeah, it would just be returning the stolen stuff. I get it. I get what you're saying, but that is a reason why people continue to empower government, I guess. The same old argument as, well, who's going to fix the roads, and you know, well, who's going to drive the ambulance? So we don't have a clear answer for that right now, so we're just going to continue tyranny and slavery, okay? All right. You know,
who's going to lock my child in a prison for 8 hours a day so that I don't have to deal with them?
You can do it the same way they're doing it, just don't rob people to fund it. Like all of like the robbing through taxation needs to be stopped immediately. But if they have stuff from that, they should like just give it all back. That's like a true reparations. Like the idea of reparations is they're asking for it is totally obnoxious. Like you could trace like who has been harmed by government more and like only give from government back to them without even ending government. Just keep on taxing more people.
Yeah,
no, but if they would just give everything up to anybody, that's great.
Yeah, empower the government to fix the government problems that it created.
No, but
there's not
like
even
abolish
anything
government and
against that.
distribute like the wealth that they've accumulated. That would be a
They
valid
They haven't
reparations.
accumulated any wealth. The over half of the U.S. budget now goes just to servicing debt. So over half of the U.S. budget is just paying the interest on the existing U.S. debt.
But they
They
still
have
have warships and like the guns and
like
all, like they've
they
got a
don't
lot of
even own
resources
those.
that
The
they could
bank
use
owns
against
those.
us. What?
The
Oh yeah,
bank.
They don't
they
even
own
own
for them.
those. The bank owns those. Like the first people who are going to be coming to collect are groups like the International Monetary Fund. Like, so you still owe us, 35 trillion, and that's a nice aircraft carrier.
Yeah,
You got.
by government, I mean more than just the government. I should call it the entire slavery system, and it's like a unholy trinity with like the organized religions, the banking system, and the state governments are all like the three main parts of them. But when I say the government, I should be like less specific and more accurate, and say like the entire slavery system.
Well, it is important to be careful with that because if other people listening to this have a different definition in their head, right, they're not going to be thinking about it the way you.
Right. Yeah, it's good to clarify
No.
things.
I saw this meme. I don't know if you guys subscribe to Etienne de la Boetis, Etienne de la Boetis Squared from the Free State Project. He does this emailing list, and it's 5 Meme Friday, and it says something like, if I had a nickel for every time the government helped me, I would be $43 trillion in debt, just like the U.S. government. Like,
That's funny.
yeah, because it's all a scam. I mean, if you think about it, like the military, Kurt, you know this. The military doesn't build airplanes. You think you just get a bunch of high school recruits and give them some like screwdrivers and shit and be like, yeah, man, just go. You see that IKEA box over there? Go build a jet plane. No, it doesn't happen like that. Like
Boeing, Lockheed
companies
Martin, yeah,
build things.
Yeah, there's like five main
companies-
contractors only. The
Private
whole military
ambulance.
defense industry buys from.
Ambulance is built by a private company and often owned and operated by a private company that takes people to the hospital, whether it's from a 911 call or from like just a scheduled ride through the healthcare provider. I mean,
Can I give you an
all do this.
example of ridiculous army spending just
Mhm.
for the fun of it?
Yeah,
So the Canadian Army bought an entire fleet of a type of vehicle called a TAPV, which stands for Tactical Armored Patrol Vehicle. It's a big, like a gigantic scaled-up four-wheeler that has it has a remote automatic grenade launcher and machine gun on the top of it.
Okay.
I have the weapon operator qualification for the vehicle. I had to do the course, so that's why I know enough about this machine. But so they purchased this entire fleet of vehicles. We have no place in our doctrine for them. So they wanted the infantry to look at how we could use them. The problem is, like, my unit was mechanized infantry, but in a normal section in a platoon, it would be driver, gunner, crew commander, and then an 8-man section in the back with a leader, second in command, 2 machine gunners, 2 grenadiers, but there'd be 8 guys in the back as dismounts, so the vehicle rolls up to the building, suppressing it, 8 guys get out. And normally you'd be in a platoon with other armored vehicles moving with you. But because of that, this vehicle only had, after you have gunner, driver, crew commander, room for 2 other dudes. So if you want an 8-man dismounted team, you need 4 of these friggin' vehicles.
Oh my god. That's so stupid.
The weapon system is much worse than a 25 millimeter autocannon. I could go on for the rest of the show we have time for just ranting about how inadequate the weapon system is, but we don't have time for that. It's very normal to reverse backwards into a tree line and conceal yourself and have your front armor and weapons facing out. We attempted to do this with one of them during an exercise, and the grating on the back was wide enough that branches went through, and
Oh my
it
god.
turns out the cooling fan they had for the engine was made out of plastic and was
Oh,
completely shattered to bits.
oh, that's funny.
So we had to get recovery to come out and drag this thing back into base to replace
Wow.
its cooling fan. There was another time I was just like at the vehicle barn doing some admin, and then someone got a text was like, "Hey man, look at this!" And it was one of these tap V's over in the side of the road on the snow. I can still find you the picture of it on fire.
Wow.
And I was like, holy shit, when did this happen? He's like, it's happening right now. It's 300 meters that way. They
Oh
didn't
my
even get
god.
out of town. They just like started driving down the highway and it spontaneously combusted.
Wow. Oh
But
jeez.
they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on a fleet
Gross.
of armored vehicles that we have no place in our doctrine to actually use. They're just kind of scratching their heads trying to figure out what they're going to do with them. And in the meantime, the officer who made that purchase has since left and gotten a job with General Motors.
Wow.
You know, I was talking about like these five main weapons contractors. Like they make all the weapons for the U.S. and also when the U.S. Gives the weapons to Israel and Ukraine, it's like millions and billions of dollars worth of weapons each time. Like these contractors get like these companies get like massively rich, but like you can buy stock in them. And like the politicians, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, they all like have stock in all of these. Even if you get some guy who's not profiting off the war and like really doesn't want to do it, like the elected president doesn't like necessarily call the shots whether there's war or not. There will be things like done like out of the president's hand to make the whole population think like we have no choice but to go into war. But like the unelected people running the government and most of the elected people running the government, like they're very rich. It's very, very profitable to keep like all these people fighting against each other. And like that's why they have this like this whole like us versus them, like divide and conquer mindset. Like you have these two sides and they both think like we got to justify like our country like doing war against them because that other side wants to kill us. And like yeah, like probably like half of the population of both sides like falls for it, and they are kind of guilty. But like yeah, because there's guilty people on the other side, like it doesn't mean like it's okay to like punish the whole other side. Then you're like one of the guilty people on your side. But
Well,
like
think about it. Like they're not even succeeding because of good business practices. They just have the leverage to strong arm people into buying their products. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So if anything,
Right.
the private market would be better. You know, you're a shitty
They have
ambulance
the
service.
leverage.
People aren't gonna purchase
Holy
your
shit, guys!
systems.
Did you fucking hear that?
No.
I heard something.
It was
but I
a
don't know what
crack
it
of
was.
fucking lightning.
Wow.
Oh.
You
I like
guys,
that.
the synchronicities are
distortion.
fucking me up, man.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
keep going, Darren.
Now I'm
Shit.
back in California. I don't get much weather, right?
Private security. If you're private security company, you don't have any more rights than an average citizen. You're not allowed to use force unless any more than any other citizen can use force. You can defend yourself. You can defend property to a certain extent. But for example, if you had a security company that didn't have magical powers like the government and they're accountable for the things they do, then your private security people, knowing that they don't have any kind of immunity from prosecution, would not be violating people's rights or they wouldn't be in business very long. A construction company that builds bad roads will no longer get good deals instead of government funneling them deals. You know, that's what happens. I mean, Joey Diaz, the actor, he was I saw a little short from the Joe Rogan Experience, and he asked him about politics, and he said, politics is bullshit. I've known that since I was a little kid because my family was involved in the union, and they know that they would just pay off certain people, and they would get the contracts. And so he knew from a little kid it's all a farce because it's a bunch of private deals that are funneling public money into private sector jobs, whether that's waste management, construction, what have you. So in the absence of this power differential where you can literally force money and people to work for you or to consume your products, if you that was loud.
I'm getting fucking freaky. I'm freaking out right now, yo.
The private,
I'm not on anything. I'm just freaking out.
The private market will actually lead to an increase in quality, of vehicles, services, infrastructure, because people can't afford to do shitty jobs and charge 5 times as much as they should.
And it's amazed me the amount of power euphemisms have had with getting people to see things as something other than what they are. Like, the ability to take open bribery and make it somehow legitimate by calling it lobbying is one of the most amazing. We're not bribing politicians, we're just lobbying.
You're right.
Like,
we're asking nicely with millions and millions of dollars.
The ADL just a week or two ago donated $100 million to Donald Trump's campaign, and the next day he came out saying that that they should be wiping Iran off the map, and that Israel is much too small, and how great it would be if it could expand somehow. But it's the pharmaceutical companies doing it. It's like the agricultural company. Well, in reality, it's all Vanguard and BlackRock doing it through all these different groups.
Remember when Hillary Clinton wanted free healthcare for everybody, and then Michael Moore put it in that documentary Sicko that as soon as she got these campaign contributions from Big Pharma, she shut up about it, never spoke about it again.
Yeah.
I mean, she was like, yeah, healthcare for all. And then money to her campaign, never again brought it up.
Have you heard about the recent proposal? It came up in Robert Kennedy's speech he gave. I think it was the proposal to give everyone with obesity in the U.S. access through Medicaid to Ozempic.
Ew.
That's like $1,000 a dose or something ridiculous. So that's government-sponsored consumer.
Direct consumer.
The point RFK made in his speech was that since 75% of the U.S. is obese, if everyone who qualified it took it, that on its own would cost the U.S. or the medical insurance companies $3 trillion a year. Now, the U.S. GDP is only $4 trillion.
People. I remember seeing that.
But why would they promote a healthier lifestyle? Just give them Ozempic for free.
Sorry, what was that, Jeff? I didn't hear you.
I saw that movie Sicko. That's an old movie. I saw it a long time ago, and I think it's like almost 20 years old. I saw it before I realized that all government was slavery that we don't recognize because of mind control. And there was some points that the movie made. Like, I'm going to tell you from a different point of view how this manipulation actually worked on me. Like, I vaguely remember. I saw it a long time ago, but I remember seeing people die, and it was so tragic they died. And the understanding I got from it is they died just so that people could get rich, so they could charge so much money for this medicine. They're not going to get as rich if they lower the price, so they've got to keep it that expensive, and it's their fault these people are dying. And because of that, everyone deserves to have the health care, whatever it costs, by the government, provided by the government. I was actually believing that. But the root of the problem is the government. The reasons these companies can charge so much is because intellectual property, which is not a real thing. It only exists because the government honors patents. But like without the government saying, "Oh, you're not allowed to," anybody could like reverse engineer the type of medicine that was designed by the pharmaceutical industries, and they could make it as well. And like there could be like 1,000 manufacturers, but the government makes this monopoly with the patent system, and that's why people can't afford the medicine, and then they use it as an excuse to do more government. Now we got to like rob people with taxes to pay for everything.
A perfect example of that is the license fee to be able to make insulin is $1.5 million. So a major pharmaceutical company can pay that out of pocket, no problem. 1.5 million is beans to them. But like, if you were a little small town pharmacist and you wanted to start in your lab just making enough insulin for the people in your town, so you could do it at a low cost, you're not going to fork up 1.5 billion to be able to do that. So it prevents people starting small businesses and starting at a small scale with the production because of the amount of capital you have to get into it in the first place. So like, they've essentially regulated entrepreneurship out of existence in a lot of industries at this point.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, this topic bridges well into our next topic on right livelihood. So, each of us has a choice, right? We can either keep paying our taxes or get out of the system. Once I, in my own journey, realized by paying taxes with like a, sort of, I used to, I'm ashamed to admit this. I used to work as a public education. I worked in public education for many years, thinking that I was doing the right thing, helping kids learn. And I was in special education. I justified it in my mind, like, oh, I'm a good guy in an evil empire, but no, I'm part of the problem. And so I quit. And it's been hard, but I'll figure it out. I can start my own business. I can, figure out a way to provide for my kids. But yeah, like a lot of people get just stuck in paying these taxes, paying into the system that's robbing everybody. What are people's thoughts on making that move? Kurt, you left the military. That was a bold move. That was hard, I'm sure. I don't know if you want to take it away.
Well, that was interesting. That I even remember having warrant officers threatening people about considering leaving, saying like, you really think that's a good idea in this economy? Where do you expect to be in a year? Flipping burgers? What are you gonna?
Oh wow!
Yeah, no, you'd get really bad mocked if you even showed any sign that you were considering leaving, and they'd really try to make you your future over it. But that it's not just Canada, the U.S., the European nations, pretty much all of NATO. Really, they were in a recruiting crisis before COVID, where every year they were having more people leave than join. So the numbers were going down, and after COVID, that escalated dramatically. So I'm not sure if that was some attempt on their part to sort of fire and brimstone people out of leaving. It didn't work, but definitely, though I do know people in the army who don't leave for that reason. That is, there are people in the army who they joined because they didn't really have any other economic options. They lived in a town with almost no industry and no jobs. They had very little education, and so.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. Wait, yeah. Can you say something, Jerry? Or can you tell me? Can you hear Kurt clearly? I wonder if it's just my audio or.
No, I'm getting feedback.
I'm getting feedback from you, actually. Maybe if you mute. Yeah, I hear some sort of like wind or background noise on your end.
Oh, it's my fan, probably. Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
my bad.
No?
Yeah, maybe if you're not talking, do you mind muting? Maybe that'll
No
help.
problem.
Yeah, sorry.
Wait, are we sure it's Jeff? Okay, yeah, it is Jeff. Okay, yeah, we'll try to figure that out for next time, I guess. Yeah, no, just that there are a lot of people who very much do feel trapped, and that frequently what happens is they get in and they finally have a salary as well, and then they stack themselves up with financial obligations, the house, the new car, all these things, and then if they leave their job, they can't afford to spend any amount of time without another job that pays at least as well,
Right.
or they won't be able to afford these things because every dollar they have is being accounted for already. So they don't have that lateral movement to change how they're living. And a lot of them do it to themselves, but it's very insidiously promoted. Um, for instance, there's a store called, you guys have Amex, which is the American version. We have Canex, but it's sort of like a store that's on every military base to varying degrees. Sometimes it's like a big department store with a grocery section and clothing and everything. Other times it's basically just a corner store. But with it, you can order anything through Canex, like appliances, furniture, computers, anything you want, you can order through it, and you can just write it off on because they're connected to the military, um, and instead of paying for it in any way, they just start doing monthly deductions from your pay. Um,
Wow.
so a lot of guys go out and buy a lot of crap from this program and don't understand how much paycheck they've allotted to all this debt they've just taken on. And if anything, that's not just the military. The whole world's designed to get you in crippling debt. That's
Sure.
that's even what the word mortgage is. Mort is death,
Whoa, dude.
and gage is like a pact or a promise. So mortgage is a death pact. You're
Oh my
supposed to
God.
be
Love it.
you're supposed to be paying it until you die. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And again, like when you suggest like, well, why aren't you willing to stand up to the government? Well, what if I lost my job? I'd lose my house, I'd lose my car, I'd lose my that's what's
So
got
what?
you.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
Just
that
do it
was
anyway.
the point being made in Fight Club when, to escape the way he was living, he blew up his own apartment at the start of the movie.
Love that movie.
And then when he's having that conversation at the bar after drinking a beer with his own hallucination, what it says to him is the things you own end up owning you.
Right.
When you get up every morning and you go to work, not because you care about the job you're doing, but because, well, if I don't get up and go to this, I'm not going to have the money to pay for the car and the insurance and the gasoline and the parking space. Okay, who's serving who here? Is the car a tool for you to survive, or are you now trying to enable the car's existence for some reason?
Yeah, we get possessed by our things. They're not
Yeah.
possessions; they possess us.
Mic drop. Keep going. Love this combo.
That's okay. So I had a situation the other day when some dude kind of tried to start up with me in the store. Purposely blocked the aisle and was kind of staring me down. Probably just trying to start an issue, but I didn't buy into it. Now, could I have said something inflammatory? Yeah, but this guy was probably trying to start a fight. And the thing is I thought to myself, like, what kind of person has the luxury of starting a fight and then getting in a fight? Like, does this guy have to go to work tomorrow? Probably not. He looks like a freaking loser. And like I could kick his ass, but if I say something and then he wants to escalate it, but guess what? I got 2 dogs at home that need to be fed. I got a mortgage. And so therefore I don't engage in frivolous risky activities, right? But the problem is when our our obligations and responsibilities prevent us from engaging in necessary and moral activities. Like, for
Maybe that guy
example,
is very wrong for starting a fight, and like you could accomplish something by teaching him a lesson by making him lose the fight, and
well, I have, but I figured
maybe
it
you learn
wouldn't
that
be a
he's
good
wrong by
time
doing
for
that.
me to.
But the point I'm making is like there's sacrifice to be taken for every action. And is the effect of the action worth the sacrifice? You're sacrificing like your risk of freedom possibly. Maybe you could go to jail for it or something. Or
Right, exactly. Like, yeah, because you do have to kind of pick your battles. I would gain nothing by winning a fight, but I could potentially lose my freedom for the weekend, or get injured, and that affects my ability to work or whatever. But it is something to think about when, yeah, like a lot of the times people have these concerns, like, I have a mortgage, so if I stop paying my taxes, what can I do? What kind of income can I have that will also maybe not get me audited by the IRS? Or, there's so many complexities that, like, for practical considerations, it's okay to, let's say, accept a lower standard of living as a sacrifice, but we don't want to get to the point, like, we have to do it gradually and logically, because we don't want to get to the point where, oh, because I don't want these obligations and therefore I can't be controlled, that we end up pushing a grocery cart on the street, and then you're 100% easily able to be controlled.
we've got to take
Because imagine if you're completely, like, homeless and indigent, like, you might be completely free up until the point where anybody, literally anybody, can say, I want that person removed.
Well, I guess the way I see it is like, our tax dollars are going towards war. I think we're all well read on the fact that a lot of the money that is paid in taxes goes towards like the Federal Reserve, which is essentially a banking cartel, which is involved in all kinds of child sex trafficking. And so I just don't want to have money go towards those things. And I'm willing to, for myself, face that extreme scenario if that's what it takes. But it's like this false sense of like we're all kind of programmed with this fear, right? Like, if you get off the system, you're going to be homeless. But it's like, you can start your own business and do things under the table, and
that's why you have to have a plan. You have to, right. You can't just abruptly pull out and replace it with nothing. That's where you have to, in order to start a business, you have to have some kind of skill or a service that you provide, right? So that's what I'm saying. It would be awesome to just completely pull out of it. Like, and maybe one day I'll never have to buy clothes from a store because I know we're doing it. I mean, we're starting. We have the ability to network. You have people that you can get food from and services from, whether it's technical services or physical commodities. But I believe that's the best way, because, tax dollars aside, government simply uses people's labor to provide tangible, hard commodities. Like, without things like weapons and fuel, like the dollars don't really matter. The thing is, they get real things out of, like, the labor that our dollars purchase. But it's all actually, dollars are just kind of a placeholder for a value that's been assigned to work that's been done. So, like, basically, we can get things without money. It's difficult, but you can, right? You know, you'll fix my car and I'll clean your house once a week for 2 months. Like,
When I
that
can, I
can work.
do like to barter instead of getting paid, but it's not always an option. Like sometimes you have to.
Right.
Like all actions, they could be classified as right or wrong, but that's not the only aspect to take into consideration. There's other ways to classify actions, like is it wise or unwise? Like and all actions have some sacrifice. At the bare minimum, it's just your time and attention, but it could be a lot more than that. But actions also have an effect, and yeah, the effect of action you have to take into account is that right or wrong, but also like how much good comes out of it, and like how much of a sacrifice has to be made. Like maybe the action of like paying taxes so you don't lose your house. It's a lot of wrongdoing. It's a lot of power that you're giving the government.
I'm in that position now. If I don't pay my taxes, I lose my house. So it's like, shit. Well, maybe I can choose not to purchase a new car, so I don't have to pay that new car tax fee.
Yeah.
By a private.
If you choose to do that to pay the tax, you got to look at like all of the effects and compare them. Maybe because you don't lose the house, you don't go homeless and like freeze or starve and die or something. It allows you to keep on living, and then like you do the great work, and in doing the great work, you do more to take power away from the government than you give them government by paying taxes. But like you can find a way not to pay taxes. Of course, do it. But you know, if paying taxes is gonna stop you from dying, like I don't know. I want to accomplish like paying zero taxes for anything. I haven't figured that out yet.
So part of that, though, and it's actually going to be a topic in the book club we do later, is that it's how few people are willing to stand up that makes it possible. Like, there's only actually around 100,000 IRS agents total.
Right.
There's over 350 million Americans. So they're outnumbered 3,500 to 1 at least. If a fraction of the population all got together, if like 5 to 10% got together and said, you know what, we're not paying our taxes anymore,
Yeah.
they'd be so outmanned, and they'd have so much running around to do to try and harass everyone who wasn't paying, it would become an absolute joke. Even if they started putting arrest warrants out for these people, cop would have one guy pulled over, a dozen other people with warrants out would be driving past him. Like, it would become a joke, and eventually you'd get to a point where basically everyone just has a warrant out for them. Like, it doesn't matter anymore, and there isn't enough time in the courts to go through all of the cases.
Yeah, the problem with doing that, like, I'd love to stop paying taxes and have like 10% of the population like go along with me. But like, what if they don't go along with me? Then like I'll just have everything taken away from me. So like, it'd be nice to figure out a way to like get everyone to like coordinate and do it all at the same time.
Whole world is
figuring out.
When I was in the army and I was standing up against that ridiculous racket that my unit was running, that the like warrant officers were spending on drinking money by forcing people to buy the unit equipment. I was outside having a joint with one of my buddies after work, and as we always did, bitching about leadership. And some other guy from the company said to me, you know, Alpha Platoon's behind you, man. If everyone else stands up, then we've got your back. Like, if everyone else stands up first, then you've got my back. Like,
right.
What is that?
At some point, you have to, yeah.
But that's the state we're in, is that everyone wants someone else to be the one who takes that first step. Like, no, I'm willing to say and to do no, and I'm willing to put myself at risk for it. And everyone's waiting for someone else to be that before they're willing to move on it at all. And most people don't even know the math of the situation regarding that. But no, if people just peacefully didn't comply, it becomes unenforceable. Like on any significant level, if people didn't comply, it becomes unenforceable. And that's like, if you could get all of the people who are even in the truther community, whether they care about the chemtrails or the child trafficking or the poisonous medical industry or the totalitarian set, whatever their issue is that they think is the focal point we need to be talking about, if you're this pissed about it, if you could get all of them to take the license plate off their car on the same day,
Yeah.
the amount of chaos that would cause for law enforcement on the roads would be absolutely astronomical. And
Yeah.
again, they wouldn't be able to go through enough court cases. They wouldn't be able to, like, just the already existing truther community, if they could actually motivate themselves to a unified form of protest, even if they had differing ideas about what the most important topic is, just the understanding that your government is criminal and it's responsible for these things, the chemtrails, and so on, well, then you actually start resisting. But as long as you're only talking about it, they only care so much. Because they're just going to keep doing it to you. And that's, yeah, everyone is waiting for someone else to make that first move. And in the meantime, they're getting distracted by politics and 30-second sound bits of one politician roasting another.
Yeah.
And nothing gets done.
The good part about the great work, which is teaching objective morality to people, is if you and I, all four of us here, and 4,000 more people across the globe, all just stop participating in government but didn't teach, that's not going to be effective. But our efforts can lead to that 5 to 10% of people, like,
Right,
because we're not going to reach everybody. And that's what's great about this, is that, you know, like, for example, I could be like I was before, completely, I could own nothing, I could be a monk, I could live in a temple and not have an impact in the world. And I realized that was antithetical to what I wanted to do.
Wow.
So instead of drop out, like, I'll drop out when I'm dead, you know, but in the meantime, I'm trying to, like, make the world a better place. So I think getting out of the tax plantation and all that is definitely on my to-do list, like, as soon as possible. But even more so, to erode and chip away at people's faith in their bogus bullshit religion of government. You see, if people didn't believe in government, then they wouldn't pay their taxes. They only pay their taxes because they believe in it. And there's a little bit of duress and coercion there too, but the only reason they yield to the government and they wouldn't yield to a robbery necessarily is because they believe one is legitimate. So let's keep chipping away at the virus, the disease of
the mind,
of government authority. Yes, this program. And the less people believe in taxation, the more people are likely to not take part.
At this point, your government's doing a pretty good job of waking people up to its absurdity. Are you guys are all in the States, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you guys following the proposed capital gains tax?
No, what are they doing now?
Gains. The Harris campaign has proposed a 25% tax on unrealized gains. Yeah. Unrealized gains being like
home equity?
Yeah, if you bought your home for $300,000 and it's worth $600,000 now, even though you haven't sold it for that $600,000 because that's what it's appraised to be worth, the government wants to be able to tax you for 25% of that unrealized gain. So
they're running low on adrenochrome.
Excuse me, you owe us $75,000 for the home you haven't sold yet.
Fuck that.
Now, that would also mean that then if you don't have $75,000 lying
they get
around,
to take it.
And more importantly, if you have to sell your home to pay them, then it becomes a realized gain, and you have to do the normal sales tax for selling your home, which is usually like 40%. So you actually just paid the government 70% of your home's equity.
Isn't that like that fucking money that expires in China type shit? Like, so much of your paycheck will expire if you don't use the money, right? There's people who legitimately believe that your money should expire so you can't stack paper.
Yep.
You guys are hearing this? Like, there's a constant, just like rumbling of thunder throughout this conversation.
It's coming through occasionally.
Yeah, one of the main tenets of communism is to totally abolish private ownership of anything, like of houses or anything. And yeah, like this new tax proposal is like another huge land grab.
Absolutely.
It's like with the license plates, like you were saying, like a coordinated effort, like of protest. It's like, yeah, it has to be like figured out, but it's something that like should be done. Like something else that can be done. I mentioned before, it doesn't have to be as coordinated. A form of protest is like the police auditors, just to like stand up for police, stand up to police, like record them, and make sure they don't violate people's rights, hold them accountable, like with their own government, with their own fraudulent laws. Like you could sue the cops sometimes for violating rights, or just prevent them from violating someone's rights. And like the more people who start doing it, like the better. I saw a video of this guy in Arizona called Direct D. He's a police auditor.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
He started like recording a cop, and the guy like called on the phone, got some more cops to show up, and like he was on live stream, and he's got like a big network of auditors, and he had like even more auditors show up. Like if more people start doing it gradually, like the more chances like you could like successfully show up to the stand up to the police, even by having more numbers. But in order to get more police auditors, people need to understand the reason to do it. So like, yeah, the great work, like doing the teaching of objective morality it's prime. It's important to get people to even understand that it's necessary. And it's something I really want to start doing, but like I've got to protect myself. I don't want to go to jail for it. I need to really like study these fraudulent man-made laws, but I think besides teaching objective morality, like we should like study how to cover our ass while we're auditing the police and like making sure they don't violate rights and like effectively standing up to them without like being suicide by cop.
One of the best things you can do if you're trying to study man-made laws is to get yourself a copy of a legal dictionary. They're not cheap, and they're a little bit heavy. This is my copy of Black's Law 11th edition. It's a bit of a tome, but yeah, they're not cheap. They run around $150 to $200. But with that, get a law dictionary and then sit down with just basic government paperwork, tax forms, driver's license applications or renewals, all the passport application, all these different things, and just go through word by word, translating it into layman's English until you have just a normal version of it that isn't spoken in legalese anymore. You've just gone through and looked at the definitions and rewritten it yourself, and that'll start to give you an idea of what these contracts are actually
That's a great idea. Not only are you making yourself a much more easy to use like reference book, but also like in the act of like creating it, like you're reading, you're writing, you're doing things to like get it into your mind and retain the information. It's a lot of work, but it's worth doing.
In the back of the Black's Law Dictionary, there's Latin legal maxims that have been around for a long time, come from classical philosophy, and one of them is in Latin, "Non facias malum ut inde veniat bonum." Do not do evil so that good may come of it. So, even helping the elderly with their medical expenses, at the cost of taxation, which is theft, and so like there's a lot of things that we've considered good, but they're done through immoral means. If I rob you and then feed a homeless person with the money, that's
It's still robbery.
not a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, even if you want to point at the most historical thief that was ever sort of lionized for it, Robin Hood was stealing people's taxes back for them.
Right.
He was
Right.
He was going to the tax collectors and stealing the stolen money back and putting it back into the community.
Right.
It wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't that he was stealing people who hadn't heard
Well,
anything.
what that's commonly known as is stealing from the rich, giving to the poor. And my friend has a government job. I was telling him you're actually a bad person because you're doing the job for the government. It's what they want to have done, and they're the ones paying you. And you're building the whole new world order, this whole slavery system. And he was saying, yeah, he worked in the school system. He's a therapist. And he was saying, yeah, but the way I look at it, I'm like Robin Hood. I'm stealing from the rich and giving to the poor because some of these suicidal kids, they can't afford therapy, and they're coming from such a state of poverty, and they really deserve this therapy. So, yeah.
Right, and who legislated the problems they're experiencing into existence?
Right. Yeah. I just had a dark night of the soul, just looking at myself in the mirror, shadow work, and just realized, like, yeah, I might be giving speech therapy to special needs kids, but I'm doing it on stolen goods. I can't do it. It's not right. Got to stop. It was a 6-figure job with benefits.
That's the thing, is government jobs are one of the few jobs out there that still have good benefits and pensions. And those are coincidentally some of the only jobs where you can wipe out your student loans.
The thing about
by working for the government. So they're creating a niche for themselves, that, loan forgiveness and all that, and all these benefits. I mean, they're incentivizing working for the family,
The thing is, it used to be that government jobs were lower paying than private jobs, but they were more secure because they weren't dependent the same way on the market. But now, like in Canada, most of the money that enters the private sector entered because of people who are government employees paying for services. Most of Canada's actual economy now is government spending.
That's communism.
We're already completely a banana republic. It's a joke.
Lockheed Martin stocks. Like, think about that. Most of our U.S. economy, I would say, is kind of because of government activity.
Yes. It's not that much different down there. Though I think we're leading you by a little bit, but not much. No, it's like the government has become the economy because they're the only ones who can print the money to keep it going. It's a Ponzi scheme. And that's in the same way.
Fail.
Well, the thing is, I really do think we're about to see the fail in the not distant future. And I'm going to be very interesting to see what all these people who were holding back because I might lose my house are going to be feeling when the stock market crashes completely.
Right.
Well, at the end of the day, it's like so when I try to talk to people about the virtues of anarchy, they're like, oh, but it'll be chaotic. And I'm like, well, you need to also have this understanding of objective morality with it for it to work.
Well, but
how's Iraq right now and Afghanistan? They chaotic a little bit. How's Chicago? How's Kiev?
Well, and even taking that on face value, that statement, oh, then there'd be chaos. Even if there was chaos, I'd much rather have chaos than a very strictly organized tyranny run by psychopathic pedophiles.
fair.
Yeah.
I'm still willing to risk
saying
that.
That's true. Chaos is better than the alternative, but also if you look at the big picture, like the lack of external government actually creates more order. When you're doing government, you're violating rights and you're actually creating more chaos, more entropy in the system. Like if you really break it down to like the meaning of rights and like how it arranges matter in the universe, you know. Matter that's against the will of the owner. Like we all own our body. If like our will is for our body to be healthy, but to have our body like maimed and destroyed is like a higher state of entropy. And that's an example that's easy to understand. But every violation of rights is creating more entropy, and like you add more entropy in the system, the system like has more entropy accumulating, and like you add chaos to the system, you're always going to create a more chaotic system in the big picture. Like in the long run, like sovereignty, the government only being internal, like internal monarchy, internal mind control, external anarchy is going to create a system where people respect and protect each other's rights, and we get to like keep all of what we make. We get to like create without having our creations destroyed, and like we build a system with less entropy, less chaos, and more actual order and all the good things that everyone wants. But like yeah, sometimes there will be like a more highly chaotic state before you get to the order. Like the order does come out of chaos, and if you have to make some chaos to get the order, or like go through some like chaotic times to have like the ultimate right, it's definitely worth doing.
I want to just do a quick time check, Darren. I think you do still have to go.
Yeah, I gotta roll out. If you guys want to continue, I'll definitely, watch the rest.
Covered all the points we wanted to, didn't we?
I feel like we did, yeah. And we can pick up where we left off next week as well. Does anyone have any parting thoughts before we?
Government is slavery?
Yeah.
Word.
Jeff, you're muted.
Respect and protect rights, our own and each other's.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for chatting, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Stay free.